All right, we have 50 people. We're going to kick off. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to another edition of Draw Me Anything. My name is Jason Chatfield. For those of you who don't know me already, I'm a cartoonist in New York City, and I have a very special guest with me today. She's easily one of my favorite cartoonists and easily one of my favorite people. Someone I've always looked up to very much as a cartoonist and as someone who fights for press freedom. And I know that some of you have seen that I've been writing a lot about this year. It's a very important issue to me, so I know I go on about it on and on, but I think it's important too. But cartoonists, I think, as my guest has said, sort of the canary in the coal mine of democracies. And we're going to have a really fun chat today. She's a winner of this year's 2025 Pulitzer Prize, and also a previous Reuben Award winner for Cartoonist of the Year at the National Cartoonist Society, and a storied, published artist, ex-Washington Post. Please welcome Ann Telnaes. Welcome, Ann. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great.
I know you and I, often when we get together, we just talk shop and go nuts about all manner of things. But I know earlier this year at the premiere, well, the screening of the documentary that you're part of, the
Democracy Under Siege.
Democracy Under Siege, which was made before everything that's happening is happening, and was basically telling us it portends everything that happened in that documentary is slowly unfolding now, which is one of the scariest things about a documentary that prescient. But we were talking about the fact that with all the things that are unraveling at the moment, it's not quite being reported in the same, well, with the level of urgency or emergency that it ought to be. You feel this. You feel the same level of panic.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you and I were talking after the screening how that just frustrated both of us.
Yeah.
I mean, there was urgency in his first presidency, frankly. There was.
Sure.
Nobody noticed because he was, so entertaining, for the media to do because it got eyeballs. But I think the cartoonists actually did a fairly good job about, showing who Trump was in the first one. So we've definitely got a running start. But now,
Yeah.
now, the press got a little bit better. The news media got a little bit better, to kind of, but I don't think, like you said, to the urgency that it requires. As we just were discussing before we went live, now the whole thing about Musk and the Trump fall. I don't think that's a diversion, although some people have said that, that there's other things that's more important. There are other things. But, frankly, two guys that have a lot of power, and Musk has already, destroyed a lot,
Yep.
that is actually something we should be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Two of the most powerful people on the planet, just, a petulant toddler and a drug-addled lunatic throwing bombs.
See, that's funny. You talk about them like toddlers. I was thinking this morning, I feel like they're adolescents that have way too many toys at their
Mean
disposal.
girls.
Male adolescents that have too many toys.
Yeah, I think that's true. They get bored and they just have to create drama.
Yeah.
It is interesting. I remember last fall when it was, announced the degree to which Elon would probably, as a quid pro quo to his chipping in for the Trump campaign, that he would have a big role in the government. And a lot of people were predicting, well, those two egos can't exist in the same atmosphere at the same time for any deliberate, any meaningful duration. So watching this fallout, it was inevitable. And yet we're all just like, some people are sitting around with popcorn going, oh, I've been waiting for this. This is amazing. Others are like, this could go thermonuclear with the most powerful. I mean, the amount of power and money that Elon has to exact whatever revenge he feels is appropriate on the president. And then likewise, the president with all of the, power that he has access to lob a return, serve it's extraordinary. We've never been in this position before.
I mean, two unhinged megalomaniacs. Boy, what could go, with how much power they have. Yeah, I just, it's just another thing we're going to have to endure these 4 years. I mean, um, yes, it's entertaining in a sense, but it's just a part of a bigger problem that we haven't on top of
Yeah.
that's just kind of continuing. And you and I have talked about how much we're dreading these next 4 years.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
good freedom of expression. It's not good for anything for our whole democracy. It's not. I mean, we've ruined our reputation throughout the world.
mm,
I'm convinced.
yes.
Yeah.
I think the damage that this has done in all kinds of ways, it'll take a generation for us to account for if we have even the capacity and ability to do that. But that sort of marriage of convenience that they had, completely unethical, and then him sort of coming back saying, "Oh, he's in the Epstein files." It's like, "Oh, but so you knew this the whole time, did you? You were just going to hang back and let us know now? Wow,
Yeah.
way to be complicit." Just yeah, the and with the addition of like the online disinhibition effect, they're doing this all online. It's also performative. It's not like they're doing this in person. So it's elevated to a level that is affecting international reputation. It's affecting democracy. It's affecting all the entire government. Yes, it's like watching Real Housewives, except there is actual fallout. There are real world consequences to this thing, and to the ability to, as you say, like freedom of expression is one of these things that people say it, and then I don't think the reality of what it means or the value, the gravity of it really sinks in until it's not there. It's one of those things you really notice in its absence. And I've always had that badge from the AAEC, that free press, free speech badge, and it's been on my drawing desk uh, just as this sort of like, it's kind of haunting in a way because I know that we've spoken about this, but anytime there's an attack on freedom of expression, be it against authors or journalists or cartoonists, but especially cartoonists, like the Jutland Post, that insane decision to run all those cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad in 2005, and then the fallout in 05, 06, and what was happening there, and then also in 2015 with the Charlie Hebdo murders. I know that those were ideological, and they were murders based not on a government ideology but a religious ideology. But I actually don't think those two things are that different in my mind. I know they are structurally different. I just think that ideas have the capacity to do real damage, and that kind of stuff is the fallout. We end up being the ones that end up reaping the most damage.
Well, they're both institutional powers. I mean,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with, for instance, creating cartoons criticizing institutionalized religion, because if they insert themselves in the political discussion, like the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to women's rights, I have absolutely no problem doing cartoons. I just don't do cartoons about people's individual beliefs. That's not my thing.
No, sure. Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think it was basically the same problem as about, and that's just a question that's been going on for a while that had, real result. Unfortunately, had real repercussions for us, because
Yeah.
it all involved images and what people found offensive. So I know it's been a while. It was 2015 during when the Charlie Hebdo murders happened, but that was a really difficult time. I don't know if you remember. Were you in the States then, or were
I
you?
was. I remember that morning. I woke up and saw the news, and I remember the feeling in my gut when I read it. It was this mix of sadness and fear and fury, and yeah, it was
Me too.
horrible.
Yeah, same for me. I was shocked, but I thought it was interesting, if you recall, that at first everybody was all,
Je suis Charlie.
yeah, exactly, free speech, and everybody was
Mm.
together. And all of a sudden, at least in this country, there started to be a divide. And
Yes.
frankly, I remember a lot of my very liberal colleagues
Yep.
arguing that these cartoons should not have been done.
I lost friendships over this.
I had arguments about it a
Yeah.
lot. And I discovered myself that I definitely am a free speech absolutist, because I don't think you go down that path where you start talking about what you cannot draw or say. It doesn't mean that somebody can't criticize you for what you're
No.
drawing
No.
or or protest against you,
That's a
or
different argument. Yeah.
yeah, but you're just not allowed to kill people because you disagree with them. It's kind of
Yeah,
an
the moment that you justify murder with, yeah, but the cards, like, no, you've immediately lost the argument in my
yeah,
mind.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. So when I first discovered your work, I was I hate to date this, but it was like 20 years ago. It was in 2005. You had a book that came out called Humor's Edge, and I can't remember where I was. I think I was on a vacation in the States or something. I remember seeing it and grabbing it and go, "What the hell is this?" And because I thought it was like I had never seen anything quite like it stylistically, but also your approach, your thinking, your execution of these political cartoon ideas. Because I'd been raised on, the Pat Oliphants, and Paul Rigby's and political cartoonists that had kind of been aping Jeff McNally. Certainly, Oliphant had not been aping McNally. I just mean they'd sort of everyone had this style or this approach. And then here's you doing something totally unique and different and interesting, but also in a very just this incendiary, like your cartoons, especially on women's rights and on the corruption in the government, the Cheney Bush administration, just some of the to this day some of the most incisive and again prescient cartoons about government corruption and grift and war. um, it blew my tiny brain apart because I was like, oh, I didn't know you were allowed to do that. And then I emailed you. I was doing editorial cartoons for my local newspaper. I was doing like 3 or 4 a week, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really have any. There's no cartooning college. I didn't go to college, and I remember emailing you and asking you, look, I know you're insanely busy. You're such an important person. You don't even have to reply to this email, but I'm dying to know how you do what you do because I'm seeing this work and I love this book. And then I went online and just went into a whole rabbit hole of your entire back catalog. And you sent me a reply. You replied on my birthday as it happened. And it was the best birthday present I ever got because you went through point by point of how you do what you do. And how you were like scanning things into pieces and then stitching them together in Photoshop. And you're working at your kitchen bench at the time, I think. There was all these things in there that I was like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And just talking to another cartoonist, like hearing from other cartoonists about how to do things is so much better than any art course or lesson or college degree anyone could get it. And it was, I bring it up just because it did change the course of my career. It gave me sort of a sense that, oh, I could do this. I could get help from other people doing this and look to them and be like, okay, I'm not on my own here. I can ask for help. It's the first time I'd ever asked really for help. So
well,
I really appreciated that. I was a
first
silly
of
little
all,
kid in Australia,
yes, I'm so flattered, but this just shows you how geeky to your audience, shows how geeky we are that we just get into this stuff where we write pages and pages about what we do,
Yeah.
about how we do it, right? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I still work at my kitchen counter. That hasn't changed. I
That's
think.
great.
um, the other thing, you were talking about the style. So
Mm,
this is pretty mundane, but I mean, I have an animation background.
mm,
So my style and how I approach drawing comes from that. But when I first started doing editorial cartoons, I was just like everyone else. I'm like looking at all of the ones that are out there. I'm thinking, okay, that's how I need to do it. The
mm.
McNally style, the cross hatching,
Yeah, right.
I realized I couldn't do those cartoons very fast. And in
Mm,
business, you have to obviously, work fast. So, I mean, just in terms of practicality, I decided, well, if I can't do those fast, I'll just do them in my own style fast. And that I
mm.
could do because I had been using a brush and ink, which is how I first, started doing these cartoons.
Yeah,
My licensing art days where I learned how to, maneuver it really fast. So
right.
that's where that style came from. The work that I did during the George W. Bush administration,
Yeah,
I do feel, even though, now is a more frantic time with Trump and more urgent, I do feel like that's probably some of my best work from that
yes.
time. I think because I quickly found out who who Dick Cheney really was by watching him give a speech once about energy policy, and I thought, ugh,
Mm,
not a good guy. So I think that's where I kind of got my stride. You
yeah.
said you didn't know anything what you were doing when you got into this business. Neither did I.
Okay. Well, I
Because
know you were animated by the Clarence Thomas hearings. Well, I know Tiananmen Square in '89 was a big animating thing for you to want to do this
yeah,
instead, because I know that you worked was at the animation Imagineering department of Disney, and then but you had this reaction, this very visceral, very strong reaction to the Tiananmen Square massacre, and then the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas
right.
hearing, and then you were like, I want to be able to say and do something here.
Yeah, through my art, because that's the
Yes.
best way I can express myself. I'm not a
Yeah.
writer. I don't like speaking, even though I've been doing that a lot lately.
Yes.
Um, I this is how I wanted to, say something. So I finally took my love of art and drawing and combined it with something, and it really clicked for me. And you're right. I mean, the first time when I watched the Tiananmen Square massacre while I was doing some gag cartoon freelance project late one night, I got really, I, it just really impacted me. And we just went through the anniversary of it where,
Yeah.
China is trying to erase it by basically just telling people it never happened or it was like an inside terrorist organization. And I'm like, no, 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 because I remember going through it. I watched those students out there for days, holding democracy signs, you know,
Mm.
creating their own Statue of Liberty type. And I know perfectly well it happened. And, it affected me. And they were very close to my age at the time. So that
Yeah.
probably had to do with it. So that kind of awakened me to editorial cartooning. And then once I watched the Anita Hill Clarence Thomas hearings, which was the
Yeah.
Supreme Court justice hearings in front of the senators, uh, and Justice Thomas is still on the court. I
Yep.
was outraged because I was a young woman who had worked and I had dealt with sexual harassment, and I knew all this crap that these
Yeah.
senators spewing about, pontificating about. They knew absolutely nothing about the reality of sexual harassment for women. Democrats and Republicans alike. Joe Biden was on that panel.
Yeah.
Actually, he was the chairman, I think. Yeah.
Not his finest.
Not his finest. Yeah.
No.
Um, so yeah, that propelled me to get
Yeah.
into business. And as I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't realize there weren't hardly any women in the business.
Yeah, but you felt like that you could tell that you were propelled, you were animated and
Oh yeah.
compelled to just figure it out because you had things to say and there were important things to say that some people, other cartoonists weren't saying. Because it is a very male dominated industry. It still is. Not to the same degree that it once was, but it really, I think that's the thing that people like you and Liza and there are cartoonists who I think have a very distinct voice, a way of perspective, and it's a perspective that is there should be more of it, but it's just so in short supply. So
And
that kind of work is important.
I think for women too, women cartoonists, I also think that
Yeah,
we're driven by, you know, issues because I mean,
yeah,
I don't know there actually were a lot of women cartoonists during, the early 1900s for the suffrage movement.
yeah,
And, like I think 17 or 18 working ones, but once they got the vote, they all
yeah,
quit. So it's like we have a mission, right? We have other
yeah,
things in our lives, but we have to do this. So I think
yeah.
I've had actually conversations with this with Signe Wilkinson,
Signe Wilkinson,
the
yes,
woman.
fellow Pulitzer Prize winner.
That's right.
The
We
first.
talked about this. We just we feel like we need to speak out about things, and it usually starts on a specific issue. I mean, I started with women's issues. I did a lot of cartoons about them. I still do them. I found though that my main passion is really free speech, which is kind of more of
Yes.
overall umbrella that affects women quite a bit, obviously, because they're the first
Yeah.
one to be told to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, right now, because always halfway through the show I flip the camera and draw. I'm still talking, I'm still paying just as much attention. I just think better what I'm drawing. So I am today actually going to be drawing um, something that I find really fascinating about your approach, because you mentioned Cheney before. And the thing that always struck me about your Cheney is that you didn't caricature his face necessarily. You caricatured him, his like his I don't want to say essence, his just the menace and the his eyes, that smirk. You kind of evolved it over time, so um it wasn't just one specific caricature that you repeated over and over again. It was an evolution, which I really appreciated, that you didn't just stick to one thing and keep repeating it. Depending on what he was doing or how he was acting, you would draw the shape of his attitude rather than just some, cookie cutter thing. And I noticed you've been doing that with Elon as well.
And my Trumps
You
have evolved too. I mean, I don't know if evolved is
yes.
the correct term, but yeah, my character just change. I mean, I rarely stick to exactly one, because it's really, for me, a caricature is more about um, who a person is inside rather than how they're
Mm,
outside. So I wouldn't say that my Cheney looks like Cheney, but it certainly feels like Cheney. And
feels like Sandy.
oh, you do a good Musk. Look at that.
Well, no, this is your Musk. What I'm noticing is that your Musk evolved as he devolved. I mean, it really became this deranged downfall. If you did a collection, like a retrospective of your Musk cartoons, it would show this de-evolution of a person who went from this celebrated businessman and innovator to genuine, just like everyone's worried, like, how does this end? This can't end well, you know? This is a terrifying thing to watch in play out in real time.
I just want everyone to notice that how Jason is so confident in, in his line. No, I mean, this is a marker, this is, he knows how to draw. So bravo. I'm so glad when I see someone who knows how to draw.
Well, I went to great pains because I felt like such a dilettante. I felt like such an imposter most of my career, that there were these people like Pat Oliphant doing these amazing cartoons, and here I was trying to scribble away and pretend I knew what I was doing. So I went to an inordinate amount of effort to try and get good at.
Do you know the story about Pat Oliphant and how he finally decided that he wanted to really be a good draftsperson? Do you know that
No,
story?
I don't. I don't. I'd love to hear
Oh,
it.
okay. So if you go back to look at earlier Pat Oliphant cartoons, like from
Right.
the 60s, I mean, he obviously he could draw, but it was a much more
Oh,
cartoony type approach.
okay.
And when he was in Washington, he went to go speak at the Corcoran School of Art.
Right.
And he noticed that they were being taught life drawing and decided to sit in on these. So that started him down that path where he was really,
Yeah.
really concentrating on learning to draw. And I have to tell you, if you want to learn to draw, go take life drawing classes. I still take
Um,
them. I take
yeah.
them every day here. I go to a open session and I draw the figure,
Oh,
because the
nice.
best way to really learn, you know, to understand foundation, to understand shapes, and
Mm,
make your cartoons solid. So if you look at Pat Oliphant's drawings from the early time, it looks more cartoony. Later on is when that incredible draftsmanship started to show itself.
right.
Yeah,
Really?
I actually wrote something about. I did an article for Columbia Journalism Review several years ago. I think it's still up. That talks about Pat Oliphant and his drawing process. So
Huh.
yeah, encourage you to go check it out. His
Yeah.
drawing just amazing. You're drawing
I
rats. Excellent. I love rats.
Yeah, well, the rats that you always draw around, like they've got so much character to them. They've got that real energy to them. I think it was last week after the ketamine article in I think it was the Times. You drew this great caricature or this cartoon of Musk just sort of strung out in a back alley with needles around him, and it was such a perfect the face. It was just such a perfect encapsulation of the almost like just the desperate and I guess sad and strange, depraved that where he's gone from this downfall. No one's ever really seen anything as tragic. It's such a Greek
Well,
villainous tragedy.
and besides that, I mean, what does that say about our president picking people like this?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
your question. Yeah, Musk is, obviously a a tragic situation, but I don't have any sympathy for him. But I really am upset the fact that the president of the United States has such a great grasp of someone's character that
Yeah, it takes a malignant narcissist to know one. Um, it is very strange. Like ego is the one key factor between the two of them, despite power, money, all that sort of stuff. I think ego is the one thing that really stuck out to me as this toxic, almost like a substance. It just felt like this thing that was just coursing through their veins, and it was bottomless. And this is the tragic thing is that as long as these two men, and I'm really stretching the definition of men there, have been alive, it's they should have at least had some surface level interaction with the stoic ideas of there never being enough for one's ego. You'll never have enough power. You'll never have enough money. It's this insatiable, bottomless need that that they have just fallen prey to, and it has completely intoxicated their every impulse. And it's horrible to watch because we all have to live with the fucking fallout. It drives me
I,
insane that there are people who have done this work on themselves. There are people who have done these exercises and actually bothered to educate themselves even a little bit on this stuff, and they just have to watch this play out as predictably as it is without and they have to bear the consequences of it. It's horrendous.
I mean, the only good thing that will come out of this is hopefully all those other tech oligarchs.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll notice what happened to Musk, that perhaps it's not a really good idea to try to cozy up to Trump.
I don't know. You say that, and then they're still beholden to their shareholders. You saw what happened to Tesla yesterday and today. I mean, they are still able to be kicked out by their board, and they do have, yes, they have these fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders, but if they do push back against Trump and know exactly what kind of retribution he'll exact on them, they're in a really tricky position. It's not like they're politicians or they are philosophers or their own or journalists in their own right. They are between a rock and a hard place where, yes, if they did take a philosophical, ethical stand, it would be to the detriment of their company and shareholders, and they would just get pushed out. Tim Cook, Sam Altman, these sycophantic, you know, I agree. It would be incredible to watch them stand up to them, maybe in concert, maybe all together if they could do it. But one by one, I don't think it happens. They just don't have the capacity to stand up one by one. You wish one of them had the balls, but I'm
Well,
being realistic here.
maybe the ones that have newspapers should stand up to them.
God forbid, huh? I mean, and I don't know if everyone's read this. There's this great sort of profile. Well, not a profile. It's an article in the New Yorker about Jeff Bezos basically selling out the Washington Post, and it is a really scary thing to read because you just realize this thin veneer of, let's call it civility, of oh yeah, here's this person who's just going to let people write what they need to write and be honest and enjoy these pillars of journalism, and just how quickly it can all just fall away, as you very, very personal experience with.
I have to say, I'm admiring the fact you can talk and draw at the same time because I
I don't know. That's a terrible Jeff. Yeah, I should. Sorry, I'm distracting. I know that we have an out in a little bit, but I noticed everyone on the chat today. I've been sort of looking at the chat, and it's been the most animated chat that I've ever had on any of these. The thing is, everyone's in such agreement, and it's not just because we're in this weird confirmation bias bubble thing. Yes, a lot of our readers do agree with us, but there are also people who push back, which I like, and have in an eloquent way, not in a trollish way, in an eloquent, like, oh, here's maybe a different side of that particular opinion. But it's just so frustrating to hear so many people bleating into the ether with these, opinions that are very sane, and they just get completely washed out by the more popular, salacious, ridiculous, absurd, political opinions of blowhards, and not just algorithmically elevated. I just mean socially and the media, and it's the sexiest stuff gets the most clicks, so that's what we hear about the most.
Yeah, but I have to say, I am actually encouraged by people and the protests that are going on. I actually drove past a couple of, they weren't huge, but they were, I was driving on the freeway and they were on a bridge and they had signs and everything and people were honking. I think we just need to keep speaking out. I mean, I think it's important for everyone to be engaged and involved. I mean, I have, especially when the election results came in, I had a lot of friends just basically check out of the news because they're
Yeah.
tired. I mean, I
Yep.
understand that totally because I get tired too. But I don't think now is the time to do that. I think now
No.
is the time that everyone needs to be involved, needs to keep up on the news. I mean, you don't have to do it 24/7 like Jason and I do, but but you can do it. You can listen to the radio news while you're getting ready in the morning. Just keep updated on things because this administration, as they did in the first administration, the Trump administration, they are throwing things faster than anyone can even process it. I mean,
Yep.
I have trouble keeping up. But so try to just be very critical about what's important, what's not, and call your representatives, go join a protest, make some noise because that's the only thing that's going to help us.
Yes, I don't know about you, and we can finish on this because I know you need to go. Thank you so much, by the way, for your time. I wanted to get your thoughts on, and I have grave concerns about this dismantling of our democratic institutions and the attacks that Trump has made on the media and also on the judicial branch. But this sort of enlightened absolutism, the Curtis Yarvin um, sort of a benevolent dictatorship concept that is being pushed, and that people like Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and JD Vance are all very much on board with. That seems to be playing out in this sort of very methodical way. Do you have any insights on that? I've always wondered what you've thought about that because I haven't seen you write about it yet.
Benevolent autocracy?
Dictatorship. It's this neo-revolutionary and neo-reactionary. It's
That's like an oxymoron to me. What is
Yeah,
that?
well, that's kind of that's how they're selling it. That the idea that a country with these that democracy is inherently flawed, and the better way to run a country is like a CEO, give power to a CEO to run it like a country, basically. And there's a great article in the New Yorker called Curtis Yarvin's Plot Against America, which kind of outlines the whole thing. Basically, it's a corporate style monarchy. But he points to benevolent dictatorships as a see, look, it works here, which it doesn't. And it just feels so pervasive. And again, it's because it just keeps getting every time it comes up, I get another level of panic just right here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been reading
I
it, but it's
I
it's getting more prevalent.
I have not, but I think, I think all we have to do is obviously read our history to see where that went. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
I it frustrates me to no end when people I have German relatives, okay? And I am, in school for whatever reason, I learned a lot about, how the Holocaust happened and everything.
Yep.
And how could it be that, the German people who were educated and, they were normal like us, how could they get sucked into something like, a Nazi government, a Hitler
Mm.
regime? How could we do that? And I see it now, and it makes me very scared. And I think people should be aware of it. You know, German people were good too at one point, and then they got sucked into it because of various reasons. We have a guy in office right now who is definitely playing especially this administration, playing to people's fears
Yes.
and to their
Autocrats do that.
autocrats do that in order to get power and keep it. And I think people should realize that. Boy, isn't that dark for us? Could we?
No, this is precisely why I love talking to you, because you're the one sane voice that I can rely on this topic without it getting into hyperbole. Thank you again, Anne. I realize you have to go, but this has been incredible. We should do it again. Everyone absolutely should subscribe to your Substack, obviously. And also listen to you and Liza chat. I know you're going to do that pretty often too, which is nice.
Yeah,
that's going to be fun.
If it gets too boring for people, but just kind of discuss briefly what's going on the news. So we'll do Friday. But yes, Jason, it's great to see you. And I tell everyone, Jason is definitely, and I'm not just saying this because he's one of my favorite cartooning pals, and I love seeing him. And he is the hardest damn worker. I can't believe how much work he does on this Substack. So go follow him if you're not doing it already.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you, Anne. All right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thanks again. All right. See you, everybody.